let me now introduce Dustin Witches, who is a member of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission from Ypsilanti. He joined the commission to ensure that people have a voice in voting and wants to demonstrate fairness to the next generation by helping them vote in a much fairer system. Dustin Witches, you're on.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to start off by saying that this is my first time doing one of these things, so I'm actually quite nervous about it. But I have lived in Ypsilanti not all my life. I went here in 2007, went to Eastern, and then left and came back, and I've been living here for the last 3 years. I work at Thomson Reuters. I'm a payroll specialist, and I set up new accounts for payroll services in a smaller company called MyPay, which is basically a smaller version of ADP. So, but that is correct. I wanted to do this just to ensure fair elections for the people who are turning 18 so they can have their voice heard. And that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and start my my presentation here. And hopefully everything works well. I hope you can all see my screen. Yep. And there was my little introduction. So I'll just go on to the next if I can figure out how to do that here. There, oh boy, I clicked too quick. Hold on a second. Where did it go? Bear with me here 1 second. So let's bring you folks back up. Let me start my presentation on my screen again. And okay, is it back up at the start? I think it should be.
Yep, you can see it.
All right, so now if I were to click, I can't seem to move. All right, there we go. All right, so we passed Proposal 2 in 2018, where the voters decided that the people would have a say in legislating, or not legislating, creating districts for the Michigan House and Senate districts, along with the congressional districts, as opposed to people who were elected. It was basically created by voters, not politicians. We voted on it and it passed. We are comprised of 13 individuals. We have 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 independents, and I am one of the 4 Democrats that were randomly chosen. And before we have a chance to do anything in regards to redistricting, we will hold at least 10 public hearings throughout the state, and we plan on holding quite a bit more than that, whether it would be a full commission or not, or a town hall, just to get input from the community and communities of interest in our state. And the purpose for these particular hearings is to just inform the public about the redistricting process. This is something that is way beyond what I thought it would be. We're all learning about it, and the public tends to not really quite understand what the redistricting process is. So we want to also teach what this particular, what the redistricting process is for not only our state, but how it happens in all the other states, because this does happen every 10 years. It affects how districts are drawn. It affects how many seats we have on the congressional level. It's quite important. It's very important that we get this right, and we make sure that districts aren't gerrymandered to favor one or another political party, to favor or disfavor an incumbent, anything of the sort. And we want to make sure that the people are heard as well, in how they want to potentially be in one district or the other, depending on how they identify with other individuals. So here are some locations and dates that we have currently scheduled. We have one in Jackson on May 11th, in Kalamazoo on the 13th. We're going up to Marquette on the 1st and 2nd, as well as Gaylord. I'm sorry, the first and second meeting in Marquette is going to be on May 18th, and then the first and second meeting in Gaylord is going to be on May 20th. Heading back down to Midland on the 25th. Lansing, we're going to have 2 meetings there, on the first one being on May 27th. I don't believe we actually decided on the second one yet. Flint, same way. We're going to have one on June 1st. I don't believe we have our second one scheduled yet for Flint. Pontiac will be going in on the 3rd of June. Novi, the first one will be at the Suburban Collection Showplace, or the Rock Financial Center. That's there on June 8th, and in Dearborn on June 10th. Detroit, we plan on having quite a few based on the public comment that we have received. The first one being on June 15th, and then we're going to have one on June 17th as well. Again, I'm not sure if we're having a second one on that particular date or scheduling another one in the future for Detroit. Going up to Port Huron on June 22nd, and then back down to Warren on the 24th. Followed by a meeting over onto the west side of the state in Muskegon and Grand Rapids on the 29th and July 1st. What we're trying to do is just gain insight of how people want to potentially handle their districts, get their public comment, and how they want to have their voices heard in the districts that they are in. And also, we need to make sure that we are going to be handling the proper redistricting criteria. The very most important piece of the puzzle is following the Equal Population and Voting's Right Act that states that everyone needs to be represented and every district needs to be of equal population. Following we need to also follow federal rules that state that every single district is geographically contiguous, so we can't have any gaps in between them. This is how you can get into situations where districts kind of look funky with branching into different areas, and then having different areas, different districts surround one particular region of an area of a district. And that's just because they need to be contiguous. There can't be any gaps in between them. Part of the Michigan Constitution is that we take communities of interest into account. And that is the biggest reason for our public hearings that we are going to be having throughout the state, is to figure out what communities of interest exist and how we are going to handle them and place them in particular districts so that they feel that they are represented in a fair way. And then I stated this a little bit earlier ago, no real disproportionate advantage of any political party or to favor or disfavor an incumbent elected official. And then we want to reflect consideration of county, city, and township boundaries. If we don't have to or don't need to make a district that cuts into a county, city, or town and separates them east and west with 2 different individuals who are their representatives, we won't. It could happen, but it's not something that we want to do, and that's why it's also lower on the list of requirements. These are in the listed in the order of importance, and how people are going to look at the districts to make sure that they have been drawn fairly. And then we also want to make sure that our districts are reasonably compact. And all that means is that they're not going all over the place. Like, I could theoretically draw a district that goes from the tip of Marquette all the way along the outside and then down into Michigan. that really wouldn't quite work, because that wouldn't be compact. We want to make sure that it's actual geographic areas that are being represented, instead of just one particular piece of the population to make a district. Let's see. So communities of interest. Let me grab this here real fast. Again, like I said, this is my first time doing this, so trying to do this off of memory, and I just can't. Right. So communities of interest include arts district, neighborhoods, businesses, agricultural, educational, waterfront communities, and a lot of other things. So for example, one thing that I have a huge Dutch background. I used to live in Europe. I know Holland is an area where a lot of individuals from the Netherlands tend to reside or move to. So that would theoretically be a community of interest, the Dutch population that we have on the west side of our state. Then we have communities of interest, like, let's say, like the Amish individuals or the Mennonites that are up in the northern areas of Michigan. You can either go up and say that the individuals that are in the way north to the individuals that are in the south of Michigan are two separate communities of interest, because they just going to have two different sets of items that they believe in, potentially just based off of regional differences. And we want to make sure that we go in and speak with everybody as best as we can to understand what it is that they are looking for. Okay, so you can send any questions that you have, and we do encourage public comment, because we do read them, and we read every single one of them that comes in, and we have been getting a lot lately. At redistricting@michigan.gov, or mail them to our PO box here, PO Box 30318, Lansing, Michigan 48909. We also have public live comment that we have during our meetings, which currently are scheduled on Thursdays, alternating between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. usually. Those are going to, we're going to have more, but those are what we're at right now. And information for getting into our queue for public comment can be found on michigan.gov MICRC, along with other general information that we have. You can get all of our names. If you want to send us individual emails, you can, which for me would be witchesd@michigan.gov. And let's see, one thing that I'd like to also suggest is one thing that we want is to have people draw their own maps. I unfortunately can't at this particular point, because we need to hold our meetings before we are able to do any kind of redistricting work, even really playing around with software that is available at this particular point in time. But there is a website, I believe it's districtr.org. That is a place where you can draw congressional, Senate, and House districts in the state of Michigan. And this is something that we want everyone to do, so that they can potentially draw their own districts, their own maps, and submit them to us for review, because we do want everyone to have their voices heard. And this would be another way for that to happen. And we will review every map that comes in. So I do thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm open to any questions that you have at this particular point, if any were to exist.
Dustin, if you could exit your share screen function, that will permit the questions to be more visible to me. So we have time for a few questions. I've also been asked if you would please put your email address in the chat function.
Oh, yeah, sure. Hold on a second.
Get that. So if they want to contact you, they're able to do that. And someone asked, will this presentation be made available afterwards? Yes, we are recording this entire presentation. It will in a couple of days be placed online. Thank you. And then you'll be able to see the PowerPoints and the addresses Dustin gave us. All right, are there any questions? If you would please use the raised hand function, and then you should pop to the top. I should see you. I do not see any questions. Let me see. Um, Let me see. It's possible Jim McCarger has a question. Jim, I'm trying to unmute you. Jim, do you have a question? If so, you should be able to speak. Nope. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? All right. Thank you so much. Let me just ask also. I very much appreciate you turning up. Just in case we're having a problem, sometimes it happens with the questions function. If anyone is not able to pose a question by the raised hand function, if you would submit a question in chat, that's our alternative, our backup method.
I think Loretta has her hand raised. I saw that.
Loretta, okay, I see. Well, Loretta is a panelist, so she should be able to unmute herself. Loretta?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. What happens when redistricting goes wrong?
What happens when redistricting goes wrong? Well, that's going to be an interesting question for me to answer, because you have to remember that this is something that all 13 of us have been brought into, and we're learning as we go. If redistricting does go wrong, which we're hoping that it won't, it would most likely be something that is going to be handled within the courts. That's how it's happened in the past. There are legal challenges in regards to districts whenever these things happen, to basically go over our work and make sure things are done correctly. That being said, based on the way that we're going to be doing things, because we really can't even talk to politicians at this particular point. We want to hear from the actual communities and the individuals that live in our state, get their input and draw districts that are around them. We're hoping that this is not something that is going to even have to happen. Other states that have done this in the past are California and Arizona. All legal challenges against those particular districts and states, when they had citizens actually redistrict, have gone unwarranted and usually were dismissed, which is something that we're trying to go for as well. We don't want to have any form of litigation. That being said, it's going to be difficult to not have any. The way we all see it is, if we're not going to be able to make everybody happy. We know that, and if we can make everybody equally angry at us in some way, shape, or form, we've done our jobs. So that's the way that we see it, and that's the way that we are going forward at this point in time.
Thank you so much. We have time for one more question. Josephine Rude.
Yes, hi. I don't know if you can answer this at this point, because I know you're just getting started on this, but I just wondered if you could speak at all about what your process will be once you've collected all the information with the town halls and so forth. Once you've heard from the public, what will your next steps be as you work out these districts?
So that's a good question, and it is hard to say at this particular point in time, because we're still compiling the information and the data that we're going to be getting. One other thing that's making this difficult for us is that we do not have the census data yet. That has been basically postponed at this point in time, and that's going to be a big thing to make sure that we are drawing districts with equal population. We have partnered with a company that's called Election Data Services. They are a company that has redistrict or have the software available for us to use to draw our districts. They will take our instructions as to how we want districts to be drawn. We have access to go into the software to see how we want districts to be drawn, and the public does as well. So that would be the after the next steps, after our town halls and meetings are finished and completed, compiling all the data, putting it into the software to get a rough map, an idea of how we want to draw these districts. And then it becomes down to more public comment and tweaking what it is that we have to make sure that these districts are drawn fairly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. appreciate you taking your time, Mr. Witches, and
Mhm.
joining us.